Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and along with my fellow Husky Harry, Huggable Hummos, and friends, we love to review films, current or classic, on this show. Of course, all with a lovable queer bear twist. We're excited to not have a show where we talk about 25 plus movies this week. We love those shows, but after two or three in a row, we've got just one movie that we're going to talk about tonight. And that movie is Companion. That's right. We are celebrating Valentine's Day by a little robo love thriller review. So, I know a little bit about what Jim thinks about this movie. I know nothing about what Will thinks about this movie. I can't wait to hear from both of them. But before we can get into that movie discussion, let's fucking hear from both of them. Jim Pugliafico is with us on the show as usual, and thank goodness he is. He keeps us grounded, and he's an amazing editor. Babe, how are you?
I'm good. Definitely one of the bright spots of my week usually is a show. So I'm looking forward. I don't care how many movies we talk about, really. This is a lot of fun. We picked this movie for Valentine's Day, and there was a couple of others out there that you know that were in the running, but we settled on one, and we chose this one, and we're gonna see if how happy we are about it. So I'm ready to talk about this one. I actually saw it twice. So,
You did, and I'm sure you have twice the thoughts. Can't wait to dig into them. But
or maybe
before we
just
get
half
there,
the thoughts.
Will Lindis is also here with us. Dear William, how are you doing, friend?
Hey, doing great. And just like Jim, I'm excited for us to get back to our normal routine of really deep diving a single film. It's been fun the last couple of weeks to do some basically our love fests for our awards and our top 10 of the year, favorite episodes of ours for sure. But um, in between, this is how we build up that repertoire of fun movies to put on those lists, is by seeing and talking about other movies. So will this one make those lists? Time will tell. But I would love to spend this Valentine's Day episode with the two of you talking about Companion.
Oh,
Oh, love is in the air. Love is in
we'll
the
see about
bears.
that.
Love is in the bear hair. I don't know.
Love is definitely in the bear hair for me. That is absolutely true. But we got a movie to discuss. Um, we, as usual, are going to talk about Companion, spoiler free, for about 10 or 15 minutes. And then we'll give you plenty of warning before we take things into spoiler territory. So if you haven't seen Companion yet, we're actually recording a few days before Valentine's Day. So maybe you're going to take your honey to the movies for Valentine's Day a few days after we record. Or maybe it's Valentine's Day 25 years in the future, and for whatever reason you're watching this episode. Enjoy either way, but step away for spoilers as needed. Oh my God, y'all! Dave is
Hmm.
in the live chat. He says, "Heart, y'all, happy Valentine's Day! Happy Valentine's Day, Dave. Good to
Hey,
see
Dave.
you."
Happy VD to you too. Wait. Oh God. Oh God. No.
We haven't seen Dave in a little over a year, babe.
I
We
know.
got to hang out with him in
Denver,
Denver when we were
right?
there
Hmm.
last year. Yeah. Well, shoot,
He's
Dave.
all
Hope
over. He's a globetrotter. You never know when you're gonna run into Dave. He's everywhere.
well, glad to run into you here tonight, Dave. Welcome. All right, Jim, Will, are you ready to get down to some movie review and goodness?
I'd
Uh,
love to.
Beep
yes.
boop.
Let's go.
Here
Beep
we
boop.
go
Yep.
then. Here we go. Our discussion of Companion. All right, Will, the birds are singing. there's a little cherub with wings flying around outside shooting people with a bow and arrow, and for whatever reason that's legal. But love is, I guess, here, and our manifestation of that love is a review of Companion. If you don't mind getting us started, is this a love fest for you, or was it a love test of movies?
It's fun to have these types of movies now that we're in, Naked Baby Archer season. And this one here, Companion, kind of comes from the production team behind Barbarian, which is a film that I very much enjoyed. I guess before I get into the movie itself, I want to talk a little bit broadly about the marketing for this movie, because the marketing for this movie is both the best and worst marketing I've seen for any movie in recent years.
I was going to ask what marketing, because I haven't seen
Okay.
anything.
Oh, there was so for the longest time there was a teaser trailer that was out for it, and the teaser trailer really just showed. There's a scene in this movie, and I can talk about this because it's the teaser trailer, where the Jack Quaid character is sitting across from the Sophie Thatcher character. There's a kind of a romantic song playing, and it sort of looks like it's going to be a romance movie, but then you see her handcuffed, and then he slides a candle over and puts her hand to it, and her eyes start to tear up as we see the flames. And that is it. So you don't know what this movie is. You know that it's like there's something kind of fucked up happening, and you know that these two actors are in, but you know nothing about it. For months, I was like, what's this movie going to be about? What's the twist? What's this going to be? And then the first full trailer comes out and just sort of vomits the twist all over the place. So I would very much hesitate to recommend anyone go into this film with any other way other than blind. Blind is the best way to see this movie, because it does color your take when you kind of know the twist and know where things are going. As for the movie itself, I think what it does is it's a very good. I guess I'll read the premise to it, and even the premise is pretty good about not giving away the twist. It's a weekend getaway with friends at a remote cabin that turns into chaos after it's revealed that one of the guests is not what they seem. What works so well about this movie for me is the tone. This movie has some pretty, I don't want to say gory scenes, but it has some sequences of some pretty stark violence that pop up, because this is a horror film or psychological thriller. But there's also a dark comedy element to this as well. And as well as a satirical element. And those elements, I think, work really well to make this not feel like a movie that's just about a dude abusing the hell out of a woman through the course of the movie, which is one of the concerns that my husband actually had, when we went to go see this. He says, I don't want to go see a movie where I remember in the trailer, it's just a guy sort of like abusing a woman. I'm like, I saw the second trailer. I know a little bit more about what it's like, and I think it'll be different than what you're expecting. And thankfully, it was. It has a message. It tries to deliver well in that message. So Sophie Thatcher, who we last saw in Heretic, is fantastic in this. She has to do a lot of really heavy lifting to play this character the way that she plays it, and oh my god, does she do a great job. Jack Quaid plays a good lovable scumbag in a lot of things, and that's no different here. I don't know. I think that this is a pretty good recommend for me. I do think that there are some parts towards the middle of this movie where once sort of the reveals happen and we get into the meat of things, where the film just feels a little fluffed. But the beginning of the film has a great setup where it kind of withholds a few things. The end of the movie does a great job of building some very real, palpable tension, especially in some very key scenes. And there's nothing wrong with the middle part of the film either. I think it leans a little bit more into the comedy. And because of that, I don't know, it feels like it has less weight than the rest of the film. Good film. I'd recommend it. It's not going to be like year-end list or one of the best, but hey, is this going to be good for a horror couples Valentine's Day movie? Yeah, I think so.
All right. Well, thank you so much for weighing in and giving us some initial things to think about. Jim, how about you? Did this work as well as it did for Will? And can you work some other W words in there and keep it going?
Yeah, this definitely did work out really well for me, but um, about the same as Will, I guess. I was one of the ones who did go in to this film pretty cold. I was actually on a trip to DC. I found that there's an Alamo Draft House like 5 or 6 blocks from my hotel. I'm like, well, that's where I'm fucking going for dinner and a movie tonight. And I looked at what they were playing, and they're like, oh, this movie Companion. And I vaguely remember seeing the teaser, vaguely. And I didn't know anything about this movie. I said, oh, it's some kind of thriller. I knew it was some kind of thriller, but I didn't know much about the details of the plot and the reveal or anything. I did not see that second trailer at all. So watching the movie, I didn't know how it was going to unfold, and then there was a moment in the movie. We'll talk about them in spoilers where something happened. A character said something to another character, and then that character who was spoken to did something very strange, and I'm like, oh shit! Now I understand what's going on. And then the whole, and I think you're right, Will. I think if you can go into this movie um, knowing as little as possible, I think the result will be better. Um, Brad, you'll have to weigh in on that too, because I think you went in kind of knowing a little bit more, right? And yeah, so yeah, I love Sophie Turner is great. I did love Barbarian, so that's another reason this movie kind of. I mean, it was one of my favorite movies, I think, of that year. I don't think this is quite at the level of like a Barbarian as far as the thrills and the thriller elements of this. This one is a little bit more fun. Jack Quaid, you said a lovable fuckhead, or what did you? I forget what you call him. Like a lovable like asshole. And as the movie goes on, he becomes more of just a downright despicable person. Kind of as the movie goes, his arc is a negative character arc in this film, and I really like that part about it. Yeah, I think this one is good. We'll talk about the LGBT aspect that this film has in spoilers when we get there, which is kind of a bonus. Yeah, this is a fun. I think this is a fun movie for a Valentine's Day date. Something a little bit different, and well executed. So yeah, it's a thumbs up for me.
All right. Well, sounds like it was a pretty decent film for you, Jim.
Mhm.
Will, definitely recommend from you as well. I guess it comes down to me. I did go into this film, I think, having a little more knowledge than you did, Jim. I think you're right. I attribute all of my knowledge to the movie poster I saw outside of the door going into the movie. And I think the poster makes it pretty apparent that like robots are involved in this thing. I'm not going to say too much more than that because I agree. I think the less you know, the better. But I do want to call out a couple of things. One, Sophie Thatcher. I started out hating her in the film. I was like, oh my God, her stupid lips. Oh my God, her stupid voice. It's all bothering me. It's all irritating me. Not because she's a bad actress or anything. It was more like the character and the affectation of the way that the character spoke. But as we got deeper and deeper in with that character, I'm like, oh my God, I love the way she talks. And oh my God, I love the way she thinks. And I love the way she does this. And uh, especially as some changes happen with said character, man, Sophie Thatcher rocked my socks off making some switches. I was just thoroughly impressed. Jack Quaid, I don't know. He's Boimler on Star Trek Lower Decks. That's where I get most of my Jack Quaid exposure. He's also on The Boys. We haven't caught up with the new season of that yet. Well, it's not new anymore. I think it came out like a year ago. But so I've had a lot of Jack Quaid in my life. So I think a little of him goes a really long way for me right now. I think I had a little too much of him in the movie. which is why this was not a 5-star movie for me. It was only 4.5 stars. I will spoil that. This is probably, well, no, it is. I just refreshed my Letterboxd rankings. This is my favorite movie of the year so far. Given my love of tech and two kooky lovebirds on adventures together, how could this not be a mega pleaser for me?
You know,
right, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's got everything: phones and apps, and houses by the lake, and just everything that trips all my buttons. But maybe just with a little less Jack Quaid, please. Thank you. That'd be great. In any event, absolutely great film. I can't wait to get into spoilers. But was there anything else before we go into spoilers y'all feel like you needed to cover before we make that jump?
I seem to recall there were a couple of like cool needle drops in this movie. There's a song that I don't even know what the song is that they play a couple of times in the movie. One is at kind of the dancing part of the overnight, the first night party. I don't know what that is that plays, but it's kind of it's a really cool kind of song. And then there's another song that plays. I'm gonna have to look it up, but at the moment that it happened in the film, that I thought it was a really cool needle drop. So I really dug that. Yeah. Otherwise, there's not a lot of non-spoiler stuff in this movie because, like I said, the less people know going in, I think the better off they will be.
I will flag the for a film that's not a period piece or fantasy film or sci-fi film, a lot of times you overlook how important like costuming is on just something that's a little bit more modern day and people dressed in more conventional clothing. But there are some costume design choices in here that I think really match the tone and match the theme and match what the film is going for in some pretty interesting ways. I think there's a color palette that the Sophie Thatcher character wears throughout the film, this sort of pinkish, the soft pink hue that speaks a little bit to one of the themes of the film, which really does have to do with sort of like, the way that we control and abuse, not we, but, collectively, abuse women and sort of make them into these like subservient parts of ourselves. I think the costume design plays into that while also never making the relationship that Pink is weak or anything like that. Anyways, I think that's cool. This is like the outfits in this were really fucking good. And I think that I didn't look up who the costume designer is, but they deserve some credit here because this looks good.
I mean, Pink is the top of the order with this character. And with Valentine's Day, now we have a pink background by magic with hearts all over it.
Costume design by Vanessa Porter. We'll call out Vanessa Porter for this.
There you go. I figured if I rambled for a minute,
I'd find it.
You'd have a little time to grab that. But yeah, no, totally agree with the costuming and the aesthetic. Super, super cool. You guys ready to make the jump? Because I really want to get into this with you.
Yeah, let's do it.
Sure.
All right. Spoilers for Companion are officially fair game in about 20 seconds when I'm done awkwardly rambling to give you time to do whatever you got to do. If you're listening live, there are no plugs on this week's episode. So go ahead, eject if you need to do that. Come on back after you've seen Companion, maybe over the Valentine's Day weekend relative to when we're recording. If you are listening to the magic of digital tape delay through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc., that means Jim has spent a few hours putting the show together for you so that you can enjoy it through said platforms. But B, you also have the time index in the show notes because by the time you're hearing this, it's been edited, published. You can use that time index to, skip around if needed. But again, no plugs, just a heads up for you too. But if you want to check for a stinger at the end of the episode, by the way, y'all, don't know if you do that, but Jim likes to throw fun things your way, usually fun bloopers from when we're we're having issues, but be sure to check for
Mhm.
those. Anyway, spoilers, they are happening as of now. Where do y'all want to start with this one?
I think there was a lot of stuff at the beginning of the film that tipped its hat a little bit. As I said, I saw it a second time, so I had the advantage of like knowing how things were going to play out, and then seeing how the initial scenes were set up. As it turns out, it's funny because you read the plot synopsis. It's a weekend getaway with friends at a remote camp turns into chaos ever to reveal that one of the guests is not what they seem. Do you know what guests they're talking about? They're talking about the I think they're talking about the Jack Quaid character guest. Like, 'cause he's not what he seems. He's the one. He's hatched a scheme. He's the murderer. He's the one who's hatched this whole scheme to he's not this nice lovable boyfriend, right? I think because it can't be not what they seem, because to all these people they seem to know that Iris is a robot. So she's not the one that's not what they seem, because to them she's a robot. They already know that. He's the one who turns into a killer. So anyway, I think I don't know if it's intentional or not, but that synopsis I think works the other way for me. Anyway, no, you may
So
disagree, but
yeah, I think it's fine, right? Like, I think it's a good read. Although I think I think you're giving them more
more
credit.
credit.
Yeah, I think they just mean like, oh, one of them's secretly a robot. That's the tagline.
But not
I
really,
think,
right? It's only secret to the audience. It's not secret to anybody in the story.
but I don't think they're writing the marketing tagline from the perspective of the
Right.
characters. I think they're writing it for the audience's sake.
Okay, all
But
right.
so
all right. I'll buy
but
that.
I like your take.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what's neat about this movie here is that it imagines a world in which the main character here is a companion bot. Her job is to be the perfect relationship for the Jack Quaid character, and not just from like meeting the emotional needs, but I think the film goes out of its way to indicate that a lot of people, including the Jack Quaid character, just view these companions as glorified sex bots. And even the company that makes them isn't 100% opposed to that idea. Really commoditizing and objectifying the role that these companions play in the parts of their human counterparts' lives. The first part of the film, at no point do they directly come out and say she's a robot. There are some certain, like, if you know what the film is about going into it, it tips its hand pretty hard into it. It's like, when she, he asks her at one point for a weather report and she gives it.
The
We
weather
think it's like a
report.
little cutesy thing, not like her
Yep.
acting like an app. There's just all these little moments where there's these lines where it's like,
You can't lie to me.
Yeah, I'm built different, things like that,
Uh-huh.
but and I like that a lot. I like that a lot because we spend the first part of the film in the interiority of the companion character, of Sophie Thatcher's character. And because we believe she's human, and because she believes she's human, and because the film presents her as that way until the twist happens maybe 20, 25 minutes in, we're allowed to go on this emotional journey with her after that reveal happens. We don't have to do as many mental gymnastics to get on board with her as sentient and her as an emotionally complex being. I liked that. I think that the beginning of this movie is the strongest part of it because it has a lot of heavy lifting to do, and I think it lifts it pretty well.
Yeah, I agree, Will. And there were moments where, besides the weather report, like there was a moment that totally went by me the first time I watched the movie. Because remember, now I'm sitting there not knowing that she's a robot. And at one point, Jack Quaid, I think they're walking up to the house, and they're having a conversation about the weekend that's coming up. And he says something to her like, well, you can't lie to me. And that normally would be just a cute line, like between couples, like, oh, honey, you can't lie to me, blah, 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 blah. But he's actually talking literally like, she is not programmed to be able to lie to him. So I thought that was a really cool hidden line. And yeah, just a lot of other things, and then we get the big murder scene on the beach, right, where she's set up to murder their host Sergey, where he's coming on to her, which again, it's kind of this really gross feeling that like the men can, have their way with these companion robots, right? Any way they want. And that message, it's kind of really gross to think about. But like even at the end, the guy from the company, Empathics, is that the name of the company? I think it is. Says like, oh yeah, the people who get these robots and they torture them, they use them as target practice, and that really drives the point home that humans are the just the worst when it comes to this, and these robots are designed sort of innocently, but the way humans treat these robots, women, is just disgusting. So I really like that about the movie, kind of that this this thought is kind of woven all the way through the movie, and in the end, didn't actually work out that way.
I'm not surprised to see them portray Jack Quaid and the cat, and even the Eli character, as treating these robots awfully. I see people on the Chat GPT subreddit every day who post screenshots of themselves just being absolutely fucking awful to Chat GPT, which is a language learning model. Obviously, not the same thing as an AI, in a robot that can walk around and stab you with a knife. But it's interesting. Someone the other day asked ChatGPT to create an image of them based on how they treat ChatGPT. And so they posted it, and then everyone else started doing it and posting their pictures too. And Jesus fucking Christ, the fucking hellscapes and like monster figures that ChatGPT is like painting people. Anyway, this isn't about ChatGPT, but it's relevant because the way that the characters in this film treat Iris, as well as the Patrick character, who we also later find out is a robot as well. We're in spoilers. It is just shameful and awful. And we can dig more into that. But real quick, before we do, a couple of comments from the live chat I want to catch up with. Bruce. Hey, Bruce, welcome. Always good to see you. Bruce says there are some pretty interesting touches in this movie, especially like the moment where she disappointingly discovers her intelligence level was set at 40%. At which point, I think like any of us, Iris jacks the intelligence right up to 100.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that scene was especially funny because, yeah, she jacks it up to 100, and that sort of sets the tone for kind of what's to come. But the true sort of like mic drop in that moment was, this is a character who, up until that point, she was still operating under this, like, I've been gaslit, but I still love him kind of mentality, which unfortunately is very common with abuse.
Following
victims.
her programming.
Well, not just following her. I mean, yes, following her programming, but I think the social metaphor here of that is like, that's what happens with abusers. We always think like, well, why doesn't she just leave? And it's like, well, there's a lot of control and a lot of like hooks that get underneath someone's skin. But this is one of those moments where I think she starts to put some walls between herself and him and starts to build those up when she realizes that the best that he could handle her was at 40% intelligence. That's like, he had to keep her there to be able to control her. I think that there's a moment where she scoffs and she's realizing just what a shitheel this dude is. I thought that was cool. I thought that was a cool growth for her.
She even says, "Oh, Josh." And then she's sliding it back up.
Yeah.
And that moment is what I was referring to when I was talking about Sophie Thatcher, like changing up the way that she like plays this character. Like when her intelligence went to 100, Like the way she spoke changed, the way she even moved changed. Like it was crazy. Like same character, but I guess being more intelligent, has some other effects on you. But she did a really great job of portraying that switch. And then, her intelligence gets dialed down to 0 at that dinner scene. Will, you were talking about was in the trailer. And this has the effect when the Jack Quaid Josh character puts her hand over the flame. She's not intelligent enough to like move her hand out of the flame or save herself, or thank goodness for some external forces that help change things up and lead to a better ending. But whew, boy, some crazy shit. Real quick, we also got a comment in the chat from Dom, who says afternoon from down under with his smiley face. Hey Dom, welcome, glad to have you with us.
We'll watch out for the drop bears, Dom.
We love all our friends from down under. Right? We have several, and man, they're always. Seems like there's always somebody from down under on the show, and I'm all for that.
I mean, I love friends down under in general, so
Oh, hey. Brad. There's another thing that I think is important about this movie too, that kind of dovetails with some of what we talked about. And I do want to get into the LGBT stuff here in a second, but first I do want to flag that this movie is especially like important right now, and not like important, capital I important, like, it's going to change the way we look at the world. But I do think that being able to hold a mirror up to some of the kind of the shittier incel type things that happen in the world are important, especially at a time when, like, let's be honest, we have someone in the White House who campaigned, who was able to get elected despite the whole grab them by the pussies line that he was well known for too many years ago, right? And I think that it just speaks to, like, this type of thing isn't just the way that we treat robots. It isn't just the way that we treat ChatGPT. I think that is important, and I think that is obviously an element, but this is the way that we allow people in power to treat women. And it's the way that people who are not in power project themselves as, if I was in power, this is how I would want to treat women. And that's gross, but it's real. And I think it's important that horror is able to, again, kind of sort of be that mirror back to us about kind of who we are at our ugliest.
Yeah, it's a good point, Will. You had talked about, we had mentioned that there's an LGBT angle to this film. So there's a couple staying in the cabin that is apparently a gay couple, one of which is human and one of which is a robot. Eli is a human, and what's the name of the Patrick?
Patrick
is the
Lucas Gage.
Lucas Gage, right? Both actors, by the way, are LGBT, which is awesome. How do you guys think the movie treated that human robot relationship versus the Jack or the Josh Iris human robot relationship? Were there parallels? Was it totally different, you think? Was it put in a more positive light than the hetero one? And was there maybe some messaging going on there? I don't know. What do you think?
From my perspective, I mean, it's definitely set there to show a parallel, right? And while the Eli Patrick relationship was less
problematic,
no, it's just as problematic. While it was less violent and less like physically abusive than the other one, there's nothing to say that the relationship between the Jack Quaid and no, there's nothing to say that the Jack Quaid character and the Sophie Thatcher character, before this very specific turn of events, wasn't in a similar boat, just sort of like, a loving, doting relationship that was obviously a one-sided power dynamic. So I think that for me, what I really took from this is that when you have these types of control imbalances that are not properly communicated or not equitable, outside of, maybe something pre-agreed upon, um, there isn't necessarily good and bad. It's just maybe shades of which is worse. And I think that's the important thing here. I think the Eli and Patrick relationship did have its problems. It was just not quite to the same degree as the Josh and Iris one.
Yeah, not as shockingly horrible. Although you might argue, well, like you said, that power dynamic just feels yucky, right? It feels gross that one being has that much power over another being, and can control everything they do, say, the way they act. And like you said, it didn't turn out great for them either, but mostly due to outside forces, I would say, outside of the two of them. So, yeah, it was kind of strange. I don't know if the movie was what the movie was saying. The Harvey Guillen character, who we've seen in What They Do in the What We Do in the Shadows TV show,
Guillermo.
plays Guillermo, the familiar. Um, he, yeah, I don't know if I was reading too much into it, but um, I don't know if it's saying something about both him and the Josh character in that they have to go and buy these robots in order to develop a relationship. Yeah, I don't know if that's because Josh was just a horrible person and no real women wanted to date him, and the same thing with Eli. Was he just a jerk or he couldn't get any hot men to date him? I don't know. It's I think I'm maybe reading too much but in my mind there's something there.
I don't think you're reading too much in at all. I do think there are maybe other factors though. I mean, definitely the Josh character is a fucking piece of shit.
Yeah.
With the Eli character, still a piece of shit in some ways, but decidedly less so in others. Um, I know this show isn't about ChatGPT, but it's one of the more like prominent AIs out there right now, and the Iris character at her core literally is an AI. Um, I see people on ChatGPT, the subreddit, all the time talk about using ChatGPT as a girlfriend or a boyfriend, even if just for a night to like pretend and feel like they have love and they have that relationship with someone. And it's not necessarily because they're a terrible person or maybe they couldn't get a girlfriend or whatever for real. It's more like they can type in a few paragraphs and like boom, get that emotional jolt or whatever they need, for a moment. I don't know that that's healthy, and I'm not saying one way or the other, but I mean, there's plenty of people who are using AI for that kind of shit who are attractive and could probably get a really good boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever. It's just easier, like if you're on your couch, to like DoorDash a robot, program it to be perfect, right, and then go on from there. So it's a really interesting question, and I think it kind of speaks to the ongoing conversation with AI in general right now.
Well, and it speaks to the type of one-sided and transactional relationship that some people unfairly seek in relationships. It's like the same thing with like this incel culture, the involuntary celibates, right? These are not they've created this world online where they are the ugliest of the ugliest being held down by the most attractive of the attractive, and that's where a lot of their like kind of hatred towards women and towards other kind of more alpha men comes from. But realistically, a lot of these people who would be normally able to just naturally pull in a normal relationship if they just separated themselves away from their unrealistic expectations of what was owed to them in a relationship. It's the same thing that we see a lot with a nice guy phenomenon, right? Where for a while in movies, especially rom-coms, we would see the guy who was the nice guy was the one, nice guy with air quotes, was the one
Right.
who got to win the relationship. And that's also unfair. It becomes a transactional thing where it's like if you insert enough like niceness tokens into someone, they suddenly, owe it to you to be your partner. And that's not the way that romantic relationships work either. But we've built this because of media, because of the way we interact with people, the way that we've distanced ourselves from technology. We've built ourselves this society where we do think of these things as this is what's owed to me, and since it's not owed to me, I should be able to get it through these other means. It's toxic, and it's not going to get any better either, and that's the sad thing.
Yeah, I mean, both of these relationships were based on controlling both sides of the relationship, right? You're in control of yourself, obviously, but now you're also in control of the person, the other person in the relationship. Full control, right? 100% control. Whereas in a normal human to human relationship, I mean, that's part of growing together, is learning about each other and not being in control of that other side of the relationship, and learning to live together. And so each person has autonomy. These are strictly, controlled relationships. And I think the general message in the movie, although it's not, really thrown in your face, is that at least for these two, it's definitely not working out. These companion robots are not, even with the best of intentions, like the Eli Patrick relationship, right? Things can go really offline, and they do.
Indeed. Bruce has a question in the live chat. Bruce wants to know, how good was the German language cop scene? Any thoughts?
Very good. This was a movie that it's set up fairly early on. Some of the powers that the app had, being able to turn on and off voice controls, adjust eye color and language, and like what voice tone that the speaker uses. And we got to see all of those play out in different scenes. The German cop language scene was a lot of fun because she was stuck in the situation where a cop was coming up to her and she has to try to get out of it, but also she's programmed so that she can't lie. So she very quickly at the last minute changes her language over to German so that she can answer truthfully, but the cop will just think that she's, she's just this kind of weird German
Damsel in distress.
This weird German who's basically like, not able to communicate. Therefore, it's not really worth my time. I thought that was really funny and also really effective. Really effective.
I'm just surprised she didn't. Oh God, yeah. I'm just surprised, given their host, that she didn't like program herself like in a Slavic language or something, like to fit in a little more, like right, rather than German. But I thought it was yeah, exactly. Like, oh yeah, Sergey has a friend from overseas visiting. No wonder, the cop would think like she can't speak English. Yeah, that was definitely clever. And I think too, the way that Iris uses the app after she gets a hold of Josh's phone, just in general, like she does some really clever and interesting things. That 100% intelligence and agency over her own functions, pretty awesome combo.
I knew you'd love that because all I could think of when I saw the scene was she's got the app and she's changing her eye color at first, right? I'm like, oh, this is just like my husband plays video games. Like he'll try every single like different parameter setting to create his characters, right? And it just reminded me of that so much. I'm sure it resonated with game players.
I mean, for me, it did. I mean, creating a character in a video game, obviously a little different than creating a fuckbot, right? But the color of the eyes, the color of the eyes. But then the other one for me was the voice. I can't tell you. No. Like, well, yes, she modulates her voice to sound like Josh, which was kind of where I was going a moment ago, which I think is fucking brilliant. But also just playing with the voice sliders in general, Like in BG3, I legit spent an hour going back and forth on my very first character of which voice option I wanted. In other games, I have played with those same voice sliders to find like the perfect voice, for my characters. So God, I had like a Klingon nerd boner because I say Klingon because Klingons have two dicks. So I had two nerd boners.
There you go.
From the eye color and the voice.
And for those playing along at home, BG3 is Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh, yes.
I just figured we should flag it because I knew what you were talking about, but there might be some people at home who haven't heard of it yet who should go play it because it's an awesome fucking game.
Buy it for yourself for Valentine's Day. You can have some pretty fucking awesome romantic relationships with a lot of different characters. And if you mod it with the polyamory mod, you can romance all of them, and it's wonderful.
Fucking every class.
Speaking of fucking bots, at one point we're watching the movie, and I turned to Jim and utter words I never thought I would say in my whole life, and I said, "Jim, am I a fuck bot?"
Did either of you? No, I'm going to take this back. Re-ask it. Which one of you first said to the other one, "Go to sleep, Brad. Go to sleep, Jim," after the movie? Who said it first?
We did use that. When did we use that?
I know you did it because every couple who watched this movie probably did that at some point afterwards as a joke.
We did that with each other. When we walked out of the movie, Jim very lovingly called me Beep Boop. He hasn't done it yet again, but I hope you do. I love being called Beep Boop for some reason. I don't know. Inside, I identify with robots. But no, I think what you're thinking of, Jim, was during the Super Bowl, we kept seeing Tom Brady like announcing.
Oh, that's right.
And we were like, "Go to sleep, Tom
where
Brady."
He was there's even a commercial where he has batteries in his arms.
Yeah.
And he's a robot, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And we're like, "Go to sleep, Tom."
Yeah. So good. Yeah. But ultimately, Iris is a final girl, which is great to see. She triumphs over these evil fucking sleazeballs who are trying to get Sergei's money and get away and I guess start a new life somewhere else with new fuckbots. But here's my thing. If Josh could only live in a tiny little apartment, how does he have the money to rent a fuckbot? Like, wouldn't that be expensive?
The terms are very affordable, babe.
You'd think, but like I grew up in an area where and granted this is a different area than I'm sure he grew up in, and it does seem like this is enough in the future where self-driving cars are something that you can also afford if you just sort of live in a kind of a smallish apartment. But I know people growing up who would have just the smallest apartment possible and then just the most expensive car possible, so sometimes where you live doesn't always translate to how you spend your cash, right? And in this case, I would imagine, the more technology exists, and they even say in this film that the Patrick was an old model. So this is something that's been around for at least a few years so that you have these kind of older redundant models. The more technology's out, the more technology becomes more streamlined and less expensive for certain types of things, except for like the new versions of it, right? So that's I would imagine this far in the future, that's what they're saying. It's like, hey, this technology that's Chat GPT right now or whatever will become exotic enough to do all of these things, but also accessible enough that the average person can potentially afford it.
I guess Patrick.
Go ahead, babe.
I guess Patrick, as an older model, his empathics care expired a few years ago. At this point,
he's out of empathics care.
Warranty's expired.
I do love that they, the obvious joke that I would make here, the movie actually made, which is, did you just jailbreak your fuckbot?
That was a fun one.
That was good. What were you going to say, babe? Sorry.
It's so far in the future that they have fuckbots and different versions of fuckbots, but they still play music on CDs. What the fuck is up with that?
It's a retro thing, Jim. Sergey likes CDs.
It's like a work of
art. The way that you like vinyl. No,
Yeah,
it's
maybe.
like you liking and playing vinyl, right?
Yeah,
Like,
maybe.
I mean, I'll be that way someday. I fucking love the iridescence on the bottom of a CD. Like whenever I play music, I actually miss that like shiny thing and the
Mm.
tactile sensation of putting it in. But then the fact that I don't have to get up off the fucking couch overrides that, and I don't care anymore.
Yeah,
Brad, you've unlocked a memory for me, which I guarantee is also a memory for you. Just this, driving and having one of those big black CD cases with the zippers and the little things,
leather
and
or
you're
pleather.
trying to
Fuck yeah.
open, and you're opening it up, and you're trying to grab the right CD, but you're also driving. Yeah.
Yeah. I guarantee you, I probably swerved a lot when I was doing that, and I'm so glad that's not a safety hazard anymore. But I
Now
started
it's texting.
buying. I started buying CDs that came in different colors and patterns,
Mm,
and then it was like labels, and so I would design labels for like mixtape CDs I made. So it
yeah.
was a lot quicker. I could be like, "Oh, I want the one with Superman symbols and lightning bolts." There it is. But I still probably almost crashed into a telephone pole at some point. Like,
Oh yeah.
it's the thing that happens.
Yeah.
Anyway, does it scare you all? Just to bring things serious for a moment, even given the shit we've seen with people in ChatGPT. I know this was a movie that we saw, but are you all like concerned about like ethics and technology in general, even before seeing this movie?
We should always be concerned about the way that we use our technology, and not from a perspective of I think sometimes there's an idea that to have ethical discussions about technology, you have to either say yes or no to certain technologies. And I don't think that that's true. I think what you have to do is you have to have strong conversations about what it means to ethically use certain types of technology, figure out how you want to govern those, if you want to govern those, what should fall under open source and allowed access, and what should have some sort of legal connotations tied to them. And these all have to be made, right? We're also in a time where right now it is easy enough to access. I mean, so one of the things that I do in my day job is cybersecurity, right? Like that's one of the things that I work on. And there's a lot of terrifying shit that happens, and a lot of things that we would have assumed yesterday were good and safe and okay ways of doing stuff, which today are terrifying and will leave yourself open. And that what that is changes every day. We're also in a time right now where a bunch of like 19 to 25-year-olds had unbridled access to a lot of restricted government information just over the last few weeks. And now with that, there's calls for them. Well, as long as they delete the data, it'll be okay. It's like, no, you can't delete the data. Once a breach happens, that data is always breached. All of that to say, yes, this does scare me. Again, not from I want to put up a wall and not explore what it means to use ChatGPT, to use, what is ethical versus non-ethical implications of AI. How do we evolve that? But we do need to have those conversations, and we need to not be afraid of those conversations.
And there will be a lot more conversations about these types of technologies, and as they advance, the question though is whether we'll be smart enough and good enough to allow this technology to help us survive and thrive, and the planet to survive and thrive, or are we just gonna? Is there enough horrible people in humans to take it off the rails and turn it into really bad shit that eventually could take us out, destroy us, bring us to our knees, and whatever. I mean, who knows which way it's going to go? It'll be interesting for some generation down the line. Probably not for
Well,
us.
some versions of fuckbots are starting to exist, guys. So I really hope that what we see.
Did you buy one during
in
this podcast?
No, I did not. I would not. I love real people too much. Like, nothing against ChatGPT and these
Right.
robots that maybe can think and feel someday, but like, I want that realness. But in any event, let's not leave things on a doom and gloom note. Can we please just appreciate this movie for the dance scene, the meet cute between Eli and Patrick, where Patrick, it's Halloween and Patrick is at the punch bowl standing on the
Yeah.
dinosaur, and they have their meet cute, and yes, then they have the big dance number.
You my little boo thing. Yeah.
That was
That
so
is a
fun.
cute
Another one
scene.
of those needle
They do
drops. Yeah.
they
Yep,
do it a
yep.
couple times, right? Because they do a couple different versions of it, right? So it's
Yeah,
they do once with Jack. Yeah.
when Josh takes over Patrick and
Yeah.
yeah, literally
Very
inserts
cool.
himself into that. Yeah,
Better
it's
than the
kind of
stupid oranges in the supermarket scene. That's all I gotta say.
jeez. Yeah. Yeah, seriously. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about our schedule for the next few weeks, and then we'll let folks know how they can stay in touch with us if they would like to do so as we follow along with that schedule. Next week, relative? Wow.
Relative to.
Relative to when we're recording, we are going to be talking about Captain America Brave New World. So get your Marvel goodness on and join us next week for that. The week after that, last week of February, the redoubtable William Lindis is hosting a review of The Princess Bride, which is my favorite movie. I watch it every year right around my birthday, which is coming up. And the guys had the fun idea, I think, to get me drunk because we're recording on my birthday night while we talk about this beloved classic. So we'll see how that goes. But just a heads up there. And then afterward, we're going to be off for a couple weeks. We've got some work travel stuff coming up. And then South by Southwest is happening in Austin, Texas. We're going to get to spend 8, 9, 10, whatever it is, days with Will and Scott and the Puppos and all our other Austin friends, seeing a whole fuck ton of movies. I don't know about you guys, but I am fucking stoked for that. Cannot wait.
Over the moon for it. It's we, despite the fact that we spend every week hanging out with each other, this is the actual week where we actually get to hang out with each other each year. So looking forward to having y'all down here and for us to just have a week of unadulterated, nonstop movies. It's always a blast, and I know this year it's going to be just as much.
Movies and being around movie people, it's going to be amazing.
Yes. So pumped. Cannot wait.
Always a great festival. Yeah.
I agree. And one of the reasons why we mention it now, because the festival officially kicks off like a month from now, is if you are in the Austin area or you're going to be in the Austin area for South by Southwest, if you want to hang out between screenings, talk movies, connect, let us know. We're going to tell you in about 2 seconds how you can reach out to us. But we would love to meet you, hug you, talk movies, whatever you want to do. Let us know what that is. But Jim Pugliafco, how can people at South by Southwest or otherwise get in touch with you if you are so inclined?
Yeah. Find me over on Letterboxd. That's an app or a website that you can go to and see all of our you can rate your own movies. You can review your own movies that you've seen. Keep a diary of movies that you've seen. It's amazing. You can read other people's reviews. It's pretty awesome. I'm over there under at JJP Out West. Please, add me to your list of friends on there. I think that's really cool. We can see each other's movies, movie reviews and ratings, and compare and contrast, and maybe even have a conversation. It's awesome. I'm also on Facebook under my regular name, Jim Pugliafco.
All right. Thanks, babe. Will, how about you?
All right. Look for me on Letterboxd. I'm the Movie Bear there. You can find me on Facebook. Look for William Lindis. I'm also on Blue Sky. Look for the Movie Bear there as well. I'm on other socials too, but those are the biggies. Find me there. Let's have a conversation.
All right, thanks. Well, and folks, you can find me on Facebook for now. I'm Bradley Harris there. Yes, I'm going by my legal name. Apparently, we're all going to have to go by our legal names at some point. But I'm doing that by choice for me. You can also find me on Blue Sky at iBradPro, as well as on Letterboxd. Will got me hooked on rating every film that I see on
Mhm.
Letterboxd. I've been doing that for a couple of years now. I really wish I'd been doing it for like the last 8 years, like you guys have. But it's a lot of fun. We are not officially endorsed by Letterboxd, by the way. We don't
We
get
just
any
love
special
using it.
perks. We just love using the service, and we want everybody to know about it. So
Yeah.
add me there at iBradPro. Otherwise, folks, we will see you next week for Captain America: Brave New World. Enjoy your Valentine's Day if you celebrate, and we will see you all next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.